You don't win her by talking more. You win her the moment you stop reacting. Most people think silence is weakness. They think if you're not constantly texting, explaining, or defending yourself, you're losing control. But the truth is, the more you talk, the more you reveal your need for validation, and that's exactly what kills attraction. When you react to everything she does, every delay, every mood swing, every little test, you're telling her one thing without saying it. You control how I feel. And the moment she feels that, the mystery is gone. But when you choose silence, not the insecure kind, not the passive aggressive kind, but the calm, controlled, intentional silence, you flip the entire dynamic. Now, she doesn't know what you're thinking. She can't predict your next move. She can't pull emotional reactions out of you like she used to. And that uncertainty, that's what starts to pull her in, because people don't obsess over what they understand. They obsess over what they can't figure out. When she sends a message and you don't instantly reply with paragraphs, when she tries to provoke you and you stay unfazed, when she expects a reaction and gets composure instead, that's when her mind starts working overtime. Why isn't he reacting? Did I lose his attention? Is he talking to someone else? Did I go too far? And suddenly she's the one seeking your validation. Silence creates space. And in that space, curiosity grows. But this only works if your silence comes from strength, not fear. You're not silent because you don't know what to say. You're silent because you don't need to say anything. You're not ignoring her to manipulate. You're simply focused on your life, your goals, your purpose. Your energy is no longer centered around her reactions, and that's what makes you powerful. When you stop over explaining, you become more intriguing. When you stop overreacting, you become more grounded. And when you stop chasing, you become the one worth chasing. This is where most people fail. They try to use silence as a tactic, but inside they're still anxious, still checking their phone, still hoping for a response. That energy leaks through. Real power comes when you genuinely don't feel the need to react, when your peace is more important than proving a point, and that's when everything changes. Because now your silence isn't empty, it speaks. It tells her you have standards. It tells her you're not easily shaken. It tells her your attention is valuable and not easily earned. And without saying a single word, you've already said more than most people ever could. Silence isn't about saying nothing, it's about making your presence felt without needing to prove it. The moment you stop trying to control how she sees you is the moment she starts seeing you differently. Most people fall into the trap of over efforting. They think if they just say the right things, act the right way, or constantly prove their value, they can shape how someone feels about them. But attraction doesn't grow from pressure, it grows from space. And when you're always trying to manage her perception, you come off as someone who's seeking approval rather than someone who naturally commands it. There's a big difference between expressing yourself and performing for validation. When you're performing, everything you do has an underlying need. You reply fast because you want to seem interested but not too interested. You choose your words carefully because you don't want to mess things up. You adjust your behavior depending on her mood, and without realizing it, you slowly lose your authenticity. You become predictable, safe, and eventually forgettable. But when you stop trying to control the outcome, something powerful happens. You return to yourself. You say what you actually think. You move how you actually feel. You don't overanalyze every interaction. Most importantly, you stop attaching your self worth to her reactions. If she's warm, you enjoy it. If she's distant, you don't chase it. You stay centered. That emotional independence is rare and it's magnetic, because now, instead of trying to impress her, you give her the space to experience you. And that experience hits differently. She starts noticing the things you're not trying to show: your calmness, your consistency, your ability to not get pulled into unnecessary drama. While other people are trying to compete for attention, you're simply present, and that presence feels stronger than any performance ever could. The irony is, the less you try to control how she feels, the more influence you actually have, because people trust what feels natural. They lean toward what doesn't feel forced. When you're not trying to convince her of your value, she starts convincing herself. She begins to fill in the gaps with her own curiosity, her own assumptions, her own emotions. And that's far more powerful than anything you could have said or done to prove a point. This is where attraction becomes effortless. You're no longer chasing reactions. You're creating an environment where reactions happen on their own. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You're simply being. And letting her decide where she stands. And that shift alone separates you from everyone else who's still trying too hard, because at the end of the day, the strongest position you can be in is not the one where you control her feelings. It's the one where you no longer need to. What unsettles her the most isn't what you say, it's what you no longer react to. There was a time when every little shift in her behavior pulled something out of you. If she took longer to reply, you felt it. If she acted distant, you tried to fix it. If she played hot and cold, you chased clarity. And in doing that, you unknowingly gave away your emotional leverage. You showed her exactly what could move you, what could shake you, and what could make you bend. But the moment you stop reacting the way you used to, everything changes. Now, when she pulls back, you don't chase. When she tests your patience, you don't engage. When she tries to provoke a response, she's met with calm, not chaos. And that calm is confusing to someone who is used to controlling the emotional rhythm between you, because reactions are predictable, they're easy to manipulate, but non reaction, that creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates curiosity. She starts wondering what changed. She starts questioning why the same behaviors that once triggered you no longer have any effect. She might even test you more, pushing boundaries just to see if she can still get the old version of you to show up. But instead of reacting emotionally, you remain grounded, not cold, not distant, just unshaken. That's what makes the difference. You're not ignoring her to play a game. You're simply no longer available for emotional games. And that shift forces her to experience you in a completely different way. You're no longer someone she can easily read or influence. You've become someone she has to figure out again, and people are naturally drawn to what they can't fully predict. When you don't react, you give her space to feel her own actions. There's no immediate feedback, no reassurance, no emotional exchange to balance things out. So now she sits with it. She wonders, she replays interactions in her mind, and in that silence, her interest starts to grow, not because you did more, but because you did less. This is where most people fail. They think power comes from saying the perfect line or making a dramatic move. But real power comes from emotional control, from knowing when not to respond, from understanding that not every action deserves your energy. And when you master that, you shift the entire dynamic. You become the one who sets the tone without forcing it, the one who influences without trying, the one who doesn't need to prove anything because your presence already speaks for you. And that kind of energy is rare because most people are too busy reacting to realize the strength in restraint. So while others are trying to win attention, you're quietly becoming unforgettable, because in a world full of noise, the one who stays unshaken becomes the one everyone notices. And that's when the power finally shifts back to you. The real shift doesn't happen when she notices you've changed, it happens when she realizes she can no longer access you the way she used to. At first, she might think it's temporary. Maybe you're busy, maybe you're distracted, maybe you're just trying something new. But as time goes on, a deeper realization starts to settle in. The version of you she once had control over is gone. The version that would overthink, overgive, and overreact has been replaced by someone calm, grounded, and emotionally self contained. And that's when the tension begins to build, because now instead of you trying to understand her behavior, she's trying to understand yours. She starts paying closer attention to your actions, your silence, your energy. Every small thing becomes significant because she's no longer sure where she stands with you. And when someone isn't sure where they stand, they lean in closer. That's human nature. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer easily triggered. And most importantly, you're no longer chasing validation from her. That alone flips the entire dynamic, because the moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you become the one who gives it or withholds it. And people always value what they feel they might lose. You may start reaching out more, initiating conversations, testing the waters to see if she can reconnect with you the way she once did. But this time you don't fall back into old patterns. You respond when it feels right, not out of habit. You engage without overinvesting. You show interest without losing your center. And that balance creates a quiet kind of power. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's undeniable. She begins to feel something she hasn't felt before with you. Uncertainty mixed with attraction, because now you're not just someone who's available, you're someone who chooses when to be available. And that choice makes all the difference. You've shifted from being emotionally dependent on the outcome to being comfortable regardless of it. Whether she comes closer or pulls away, you remain the same. And that consistency in your own state is what makes you magnetic, because most people are controlled by circumstances. You've learned to stay in control of yourself. And when she sees that, she starts to question everything. Why did she take you for granted? Why did she assume you'd always be there? Why does it feel different now? Those questions don't come from anything you said. They come from what you stopped doing. You stopped chasing, you stopped reacting, you stopped giving away your energy without intention. And in doing that, you created space for her to feel, to wonder, and to slowly realize your value. That's the moment when attraction shifts into respect. And once respect enters the equation, everything changes because attraction can fade, but respect rebuilds everything from the ground up. And now, without saying a word, you've become someone she can no longer overlook. There comes a point where the silence you created starts doing something powerful. It forces her to face her own emotions without distraction. Before, when you were always there, always responding, always engaging, she never had to sit with the consequences of her actions. Your presence made things easy for her. Even when she pulled away, she knew you were still emotionally available in the background. That safety net allowed her to take you lightly, to delay clarity, to avoid truly missing you. But now that safety net is gone. And in its place, there's space, quiet. In that space, something unavoidable begins to happen. Reflection. At first, she might try to ignore it. She distracts herself, talks to other people, keeps busy, convinces herself that everything is fine. But emotions don't disappear just because you avoid them. They build, they resurface in unexpected moments. A memory, a song, a random thought. Suddenly, you're back in her mind. And this time, you're not easily reachable. That's when the emotional weight starts to hit differently. She begins to replay moments in her head, not just the good ones, but also the way you showed up for her, the way you understood her, the way you made her feel seen. And when she compares that to what she has now or the uncertainty of what she lost, it creates a contrast that's hard to ignore because people don't truly appreciate something while it's consistently available. They recognize its value when it's no longer within reach, and your absence is now speaking louder than your presence ever did. She might start questioning her decisions, wondering if she misjudged you, if she let something real slip away, if she underestimated your strength, your patience, your worth. And those questions don't come from you trying to prove anything, they come from her realizing it on her own. That's what makes it powerful. Because when someone convinces themselves of your value, it's far stronger than anything you could ever say. You didn't argue, you didn't beg, you didn't try to force understanding. You simply stepped back and allowed reality to do its work. And reality, when given space, always reveals the truth. Now, instead of you chasing clarity, she's searching for it. Instead of you trying to reconnect, she's feeling the pull to come closer. And instead of you being emotionally overwhelmed, you're grounded, steady, and in control of your own direction. That shift creates a dynamic where she starts investing emotionally again, not because you asked her to, but because she feels compelled to. And the more she feels it, the more she begins to understand what your presence actually meant in her life. This this is where the real transformation happens, not in her actions yet, but in her perception. Because once someone sees your value clearly, they can't unsee it. And all of it started the moment you chose silence over chasing. And eventually, everything leads to a moment of truth, a moment where she can no longer ignore what she feels, no longer pretend that your absence didn't affect her, no longer convince herself that you were just another option. Because by now, the dynamic has completely shifted. You're no longer the one waiting, wondering, or hoping. You've moved forward internally. You've built a level of emotional independence that doesn't rely on her validation. Your life continues, your focus is sharper, your energy is directed toward growth, purpose, and peace. And whether she comes back or not, you're no longer defined by that outcome. That's what makes this final stage so powerful. Because when she finally reaches out, whether it's a simple message, a casual check in, or something more direct, you're not reacting from the same place you once did. There's no urgency in your response, no emotional rush, no need to prove anything. You respond with calmness, with clarity, and most importantly, with boundaries, and she feels that immediately. The same person she once thought she could figure out, predict, or even control now feels different, stronger, more centered, less available, but more valuable. And that realization hits deeper than anything else because it shows her that she didn't just your attention. She lost access to a version of you that she can't easily get back. At this point, She may try to reconnect on a deeper level. She may show more interest, more effort, more emotional openness than before. But here's where most people make a mistake. They get pulled back into old patterns the moment they see that interest return. You don't, because you understand something now that you didn't before. Attraction without respect doesn't last, and attention without effort means nothing. So instead of rushing back in, you observe, you let her actions speak, you give space for consistency to reveal itself, and only if she shows genuine effort, genuine change, and genuine investment do you allow things to slowly rebuild. Not from where they left off, but from a stronger, healthier foundation. Because now you're not trying to win her back, you're deciding if she deserves a place in your life again. That shift in mindset is everything. It puts you in control, not of her, but of yourself. And when you control yourself, you naturally influence everything around you. Your energy becomes more grounded, your presence becomes more impactful, and your standards become non negotiable. This is no longer about proving your worth to her. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to settle for anything less than what aligns with it. And whether she steps up or not, you remain in that space, because the real power was never in making her come back. It was in becoming the version of yourself that doesn't need her to. And that's the moment you truly win.